千里之行，始于足下。A journey of 1,000 miles begins beneath the feet. We now gather in the Tao to travel the journey together. Welcome to Tao Talks with Derek Lin, where we take a deep dive into the Tao Te Ching by Lao Tzu. As always, I want to extend my welcome to you. Thank you for joining us. I would like to invite you to center your thoughts and direct your attention to this moment in time, to the here and now, to be fully present and mindfully aware as we are ready ourselves for this sacred process in the Tao with one another. I think everyone recalls from last time that this chapter is all about being like water, and that is certainly reflected in the chapter title, 弱水章. Specifically, in this chapter, Lao Tzu talks about the 7 virtues of water, the 7 virtues for all of us to emulate. Our goal today is to summarize our discussions about that so far and bring everything in this chapter to a final conclusion. Here's how the chapter looks. As you can see, 13 lines divided into 3 sections. As we previously discussed, the 3 sections are as follows. The first section is the introduction. It starts out talking about what makes water special. Lao Tzu says water is the highest goodness. It benefits all living things. It is non-contentious. It stays low. In the second section, it talks all about the 7 characteristics of water that we call virtues from the Tao perspective. And that is what we covered last time. The last section, only 2 lines. They wrap everything up and they circle back to the non-contentious point made in the beginning of this chapter. So then, as a quick recap of what we talked about before, previously I summarized the 7 virtues of water into 2 slides. Here we see the first 3. We've got water flowing naturally to the lowest point in any vicinity. It goes where it is needed the most, and it does so naturally. When applied to you and me, this means when we practice the Tao of humility, we stop at the appropriate place and we keep a low profile, just like water. The second virtue of water has to do with its depth. A deep pool of water cannot be readily seen through or fully explored. We see this every time we look at a lake or the ocean. So, to emulate the depth of water, we do so through cultivation in developing a depth of character, depth of feelings, depth of compassion, depth of virtues, and overall, depth of wisdom. And in the third virtue, it is noted that water flows across the land, nourishes all plants, animals, as well as us, human beings. So Tao is like water in having this nurturing effect on all living things. We emulate water and the Tao by also becoming helpful, practicing the Tao of giving out of the Tao of compassion, helping people with no strings attached, much like the water of the river, slaking the thirst of all living things with no strings attached. We previously also talked about the other 4 virtues of the 7 virtues of water. So as you can see in this slide, for the 4th, which is at the top of this slide, this is about how still water, undisturbed, will provide an accurate reflection of everything in its vicinity. When we follow this aspect of the 7 virtues of water, it is all about having an accurate reflection of reality. In speaking with integrity, speak the truth. So that is an obligation for Tao cultivators. And we also note that the reflection of water is disturbed when water itself has been disturbed. Perhaps a pebble has been dropped into it, causing ripples. We liken that to the various factors in the material world, the temptations, the distractions that cause disturbance in the mind. That can possibly make our thoughts, mental states so distorted that we're not able to reflect reality in an accurate way. So think about the untruths, the falsehoods, the lies we see in this world. The source of those are invariably a mind that has been disturbed by the many factors, the many temptations of the material world. Someone who has been affected by greed, a thirst for power, will lie his or her way to the objective. Then the 5th virtue of water has to do with how water administers itself to all living things equally with no attachments. Applied to us, it just means that we have to administer or manage our lives with the same detachment. That is to say, we play no favorites. We discriminate against no one. We treat everyone the same. Just like water feeds all living things, without favoritism, without bias, without distinguishing from one to the other, without basing any decisions on any specific factors. And next to last, we wish to emulate water in terms of its capabilities, its versatilities. It can take on so many different forms. It has so many capabilities. It is so powerful despite seeming to be weak and pliant and flexible. Thus, for Tao cultivators, following the Tao, emulate the water in that way, you become a more flexible, versatile, and more capable person, more effective in everything that you do. Lastly, the last virtue of water in the set of 7 is that waters will move, always move with the timing of heaven, the timing of nature. It will arrive on nature's schedule. When we are aligned with the Tao, we also act at the right time. Not too early, not too late. It is an actual practice in the Tao to be mindful of that and to always be punctual. If it is difficult to be punctual for an appointment, perhaps a meeting, then Tao cultivators will adjust by planning for an earlier start in order to arrive on time. So that ends our recap of the discussion that we had before. Let's go into new territory, which will be the last two lines of the third section. Line 12, it says, because it does not contend. And this, of course, is a reference to water. Water doesn't contend against anything. It contends against no one. This is a reiteration to the second line from the same chapter. From this chapter, it says water is not contentious. Specifically, as a reminder, here's what line 2 actually says. Water greatly benefits myriad things without contention. So water is only there to give of itself, not to fight against anyone. Indeed, we can attack water all we want. We know water will not resist. Water will not retaliate. And after you're done attacking, a moment after that, water will settle down to its previous undisturbed state. You can repeat that attack as many times as you like. It doesn't disturb the water. After a while, it settles down. Thus, there is no anger, no complaints, no protests. Water is just water, no human emotions. When we emulate this, that is why Tao cultivators will always reflect on the non-contentious nature of water and therefore give up any thoughts of vengeance, thoughts of violence. So that is line 12. Line 13, the final line. Let's break it down character by character. It starts out with the character for therefore, which can also be translated as so or thus. Let's stick with therefore for now. And then the second character, wu, often used in the Tao, it means to not have or to be without. And then the last character is fault or blame. So to be without fault, without blame, is basically to be beyond reproach. So there we have the literal breakdown of the three characters. And just to repeat what we talked about in the last slide, water is all about benefits for all living things, not contention. And that is the reason why there is no blaming water. No reason to complain about water, to find fault with water. Water is without fault. It does everything with impartiality. You cannot accuse water of practicing favoritism. Water has nothing to prove, and it has no need to fight anyone. Water may appear agitated at times, but as noted, it always settles down. Even when water plays a role, for instance, a thunderstorm or a turbulent sea, even in those cases where water seems to be part of this very violent force from nature, we know it is not actually water itself, but the weather pattern, the forces of nature driving water to sometimes disastrous results like tsunami, flooding, and so on. Water itself is just water. So now we are done with the last slide explaining the lines one by one. For the very last part of this, I want to bring all 7 virtues together and tie it together with non-contention. So as you can see in the title for this slide, I've got 七德, literally the 7 virtues. Then those lead to 不争, literally non-contention. So in the center of the slide, I have the image, the yin and yang symbol representing the Tao itself. So this is the last and most important point from Lao Tzu. It is, in short, to apply the virtues of water to life situations, particularly when it comes to handling conflicts or bringing harmony to a difficult situation. So when there is a tense, potentially explosive situation, which we come across from time to time in our lives, a Tao cultivator will use the 7 virtues of water to diffuse the explosive scenario, to sidestep contention, to bring the temperature down, to bring about peace. And this starts with the first virtue, dwelling in the place of natural humility, or what Lao Tzu would say as dwelling at the right location, at the right place. So this is to say that a Tao cultivator, when facing contention, will practice the Tao of humility to ensure they are not the ones to cause contention or to make the situation worse. Now, when we talk about humility, it is a good thing to remind ourselves that there are so many conflicts that we see in life that can trace back to arrogance as a primary cause. When someone feels that arrogance, exhibits that arrogance, it is the beginning of the possibility for contention. Therefore, humility, the Tao of humility, is the antidote for that. Second, bring depth of understanding. And this is from the virtue of water, the feeling with great depth. That is because Tao cultivators approach the situation itself with the depth of understanding. That is to say, they will not assume that one side or the other must be at fault, but realize that there must be multiple perspectives that have not yet been reconciled. And then let's go to number 3. Number 3 comes from the virtue of water, giving with great kindness. Here, Tao cultivators will give the gift of kindness to everyone. That is, Tao cultivators will treat both sides with compassion. Especially in a tense situation, it is all about sympathy and wanting to help. Realizing that nobody really wants to fight. And nobody wins if fighting breaks out. Now let's go on to number 4. This comes from the virtue of water, to speak with great integrity, to be the trustworthy mediator who exhibits that integrity. So for Tao cultivators, due to their consistent cultivational practices, they are seen by everyone as impartial, fair-minded, and, most importantly, trusted. They are exactly what people want to mediate a dispute. And this is the possibility to bring that dispute to a peaceful conclusion. Then, number 5, this comes from the virtue of water, where water governs with great administration. Applied to the Tao cultivator, administer both sides in an equitable way. That is, especially in a tense situation, a Tao cultivator will take care to treat everyone fairly, to be completely transparent, have everything above the table. No one feels neglected or slighted or left out. Everyone is respected. All perspectives are treated with serious intent and serious consideration. Then, let's go to number 6. Number 6 says, handle the conflicting views with capable skills. So this is from the virtue of water, which handles everything with great capability and versatility. This is because it is inevitable that in a conflict, the two sides, without a doubt, will all have a whole bunch of grievances. And this is where you need to have capabilities and flexibility to negotiate, to work with the complaining sides. Tao cultivators will then be able to guide people into forging a compromise with one another. And perhaps no one will like the compromise very much. Everybody wants to win, quote unquote, win for their side. But compromises are always possible to someone with the skills and capabilities stemming from the Tao. Lastly, the 7th virtue. Here we talk about timing. Choose the right time to bring peace, deriving from the virtue of water that says water always moves with great timing, about following the natural schedule of heaven. Here, I think you and I can recall from life experiences that so much of life is all about timing. Remember how things used to be, that if something happens too soon, well, the timing isn't right yet. And in a conflict, when you try to bring both sides together too quickly, well, perhaps the temperature is still too high, tension is still too high on both sides. But then you also don't want to wait too long. If it is too late, well, the greatest diplomacy in the world is going to be useless. The conflict has started, people have gotten hurt, they've been harmed, they've been injured, or worse. So the timing of resolution is just as important as the resolution itself. All of these together, I think, make it pretty clear why someone will want to use the 7 virtues of water in a situation where contention is a possibility or has already started. And this is why we then can remind everyone about water, because it does not contend, it is therefore beyond reproach. That is the reason how we can use the 7 virtues of water into life situations to bring about peace and harmony. As I mentioned, this is the last and most important point from Lao Tzu. I am very happy to be able to share this with everyone. And now we are ready for the paraphrase of Tao Te Ching 8. Whenever we do the paraphrase, our purpose is always the same. We want to demonstrate understanding the meaning of this chapter by reiterating, expressing what the chapter says with our own words, with the words of modern times. So here's how the chapter looks. As I mentioned, 3 sections, the beginning, the middle, the end. Not all Tao Te Ching chapters can be divided up in this way. Every one of them is unique in some ways. But for the first section, it is the starting introduction about water itself, about water being good, being beneficial for all living things, and how it stays low. So here is the paraphrase for that. What is the highest goodness? It resembles water, because water is beneficial for everyone, while being contentious against no one. Also, water demonstrates a natural humility by flowing to the lowest place, while arrogant people place themselves higher to draw more attention. In these respects, we can see water is congruent with the Tao. So that is the paraphrase for the first section. To be congruent with the Tao is to be in alignment with the Tao, to flow with the Tao. Now, for the second section, by now you can see just at a glance that the middle section is composed of 7 lines. All 7 lines are 3 characters in length in the original, and that's because they are a set of the 7 virtues of water. So now we want to summarize or paraphrase the 7 virtues of water with our own modern language. Here's what I would offer. Like water, Tao cultivators naturally flow to the humble, lower place. Like a deep pool of water, there is a lot more to them than meets the eyes. They give with great kindness, like water providing itself to all selflessly. They speak with great integrity, like water reflecting its surroundings accurately. They administer to everyone equally, like water feeding all living things regardless of merit. They resolve all issues effectively, like water adjusting itself as it flows to its destination. Because they follow the Tao, everything they do happens at the right time, like rain falling when it is most needed. So now, as you can see, the original can be rendered into modern language, and I think it can make a lot of sense. So the final section, the 2 concluding lines, it is important for us to wrap it back around to talk about non-contention. So here's what I would offer for the last 2 lines. Water does all of the above without any complaints, contention, or conflicts. Similarly, Tao cultivators are at peace with everyone. Their only wish is to be of service. So there we have the paraphrase for the entire chapter 8 of the Tao Te Ching. So for the very last part of our discussion, we have one more thing left, and that is the full circle. In the full circle discussion, we specifically tie the last part of the chapter to the beginning to form a circle. In this case, in the last lines of Tao Te Ching 8, Lao Tzu says water does not contend, is therefore beyond reproach. You cannot find fault with water. It doesn't fight anybody. Now, if we were to link this back to the beginning, we see another way to express the same concept. Water benefits all and contends against no one. The two iterations, top and bottom, are of the same concept, and they reinforce the message from Lao Tzu, which is the importance of non-contention. This is how we can see harmony is central to the Tao. So visualize the big circle going back from the end of the chapter to the beginning and back again. It's really all about harmony. Therefore, the important line to keep in mind says, because it does not contend, it is therefore beyond reproach. So if we wish to live a life that is beyond reproach, to live life perfectly without faults, then you and I should be more like water. So in the last parts of our discussion, we focused on the 7 virtues of water, and we talked about how it can be applied in a contentious situation. And as you recall from our discussion, the first virtue of water is humility. This means that in life, you and I can all proceed with great confidence, but without arrogance. That is the right way to go about the journey of life. The second virtue of water has to do with depth. And that means to not be a shallow person, to go in depth on everything, including the Tao itself. To be shallow in the Tao is to dabble. Number 3 is about compassion and giving. Water gives itself to all. So you and I, want to let our actions, spring from the heart of compassion. In the Tao, there is the ever-present practice of compassion. Number 4 is to be trustworthy, is to possess integrity. This is where we want to talk about earning and keeping everybody's trust. We want to talk about never compromising our integrity. And then number 5 is the impartial administration. Water administers to all. It slakes the thirst of all. So this great administration is actually a great metaphor for leadership as well, to administer and treat everyone with equality and fairness. Number 6 is about capability, effectiveness, versatility. We want to emulate water and take on its flexibility, its versatility, and its power. Lastly, timing. To move with great timing is not too soon, not too late. It is to be at the right place at the right time. So by observation, by perceiving the different angles, the different perspectives of a particular situation, you and I will know the right moment to act. Not too quickly, not too slowly, but just right. Our meeting has come to an end, but the journey continues on. Until next time, may the Tao fill you with peace and happiness.